Welcome back. It's the kind of case really has no winners, only lives ended and lives shattered. A jury in Texas today found a man not guilty in the murder of a drunk driver who had killed his sons. Local media reports say in 2012, David Barajas and his two sons were pushing their truck down a road near their home south of Houston when a 20-year-old man, Jose Banda Jr., a drunk driver, hit and killed the two boys who were aged 11 and 12. Prosecutors say the father then shot and killed the drunk driver after being acquitted today. The father said he's still destroyed and missing his sons as always, but a weight has been lifted.
I'm happy. I'm happy. I can move forward with my life. I can start this closure for me. I can proceed with things that I want to do in life with my family and as a person.
Joining me now live is senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, who's a former federal prosecutor, and legal analyst Mark O'Mara, George Zimmerman's former attorney. I mean, Jeff, obviously this is just a horrific case all around. I think probably everybody at one point or other has thought in their life, well, if somebody killed loved ones of mine, how would I act? Do you think that kind of thing weighs on a jury?
You bet it does. They're human beings. And, you know, what the defense did in this case, which I think was very clever, was they didn't exactly say he had it coming, he deserved it. They gave the jury an opportunity to acquit, but on the evidence that was before them. There was no eyewitness. There was never a gun recovered. There sure didn't seem like there were any other suspects, but the jury could say, well,
there's just not enough to say beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, even though you know that the human factor was very big in a case like this.
Mark, do you think that it could have just come down to the fact that there was reasonable doubt, or I mean, that the police failed to produce a murder weapon, the residue on his hands, turned out negative?
Well, it certainly wasn't part of jury nullification or a jury pardon. It just seems that way. But I look at it a little bit more concerning. I'm wondering if there wasn't somewhat of a confederacy of amnesia in a case like this, because somehow many witnesses who seem to be very readily available to see what they may have seen came in and testified that they didn't see it. The two young boys who were there who testified they didn't quite see a gun, though they heard the gunshot from feet away. The other person who saw the man run to a house and come back and heard a gunshot right afterwards says, but I can't tell you for sure it was the defendant. A gun residue test that doesn't show up anything. I'm wondering if this may not have been a little bit more sinister, and that would trouble me, that this may have been played in a way to virtually assure an acquittal.
So, I mean, in that sense, you're saying possibly the prosecution itself was part of that.
You know, if you look at it, the way the prosecutor presented the case, I think they tried what they could. And again, I know this sounds sort of conspiratorial, but it just seems as though the witnesses who may otherwise have been a bit more specific in their presentation of evidence leading to the guilt of the defendant just never sort of struck home with that, and that left an opening for a jury acquittal.
What about that, Jeff? And the father said he never left the scene. There were two witnesses who said, he'd left for 3 minutes or so, which is theoretically long enough to go get a gun.
And they found an empty holster in his house. I mean, it seemed like there was a lot of circumstantial evidence. You know what I thought of in this case was, in the 1988 presidential debates, remember Bernie Shaw of CNN asked Michael Dukakis, what would you do if your wife was murdered? And it was a question about the death penalty.
And sexually assaulted as well.
Right. I mean, it was just a horror. I mean, in a very visceral question. And Dukakis sort of, ignored the emotional aspect of the question. These cases have a lot of emotion to them. I mean, think about it. The guy lost 2 kids right in front of him, and, to a drunk driver. But obviously, we can't have a society where, people go, acting their own kind of vengeance.
At one point, dash cam video was shown of the father administering CPR to one of the sons while the wife was crying out for help. Again, just in terms of the emotion of it, it's overwhelming.
It is. I would love to know if we could have an X-ray vision into the hearts of the jury, what they really saw, what they really thought was going on here. We'll never be able to do that, but I bet it was fairly complicated.
Mark, trials like this one, where the emotional component is extraordinarily high, does it make it that much more difficult from a lawyer's perspective?
Well, I mean, it does, because you have to acknowledge the emotional aspect of it without playing into it too much. It is a real delicate balance, because you're there presenting evidence or defending against evidence. But if you're unaware, for example, in many of the murder cases, Zimmerman included, of the emotions that wrap around it, and you then don't connect with the jury, because they certainly feel the emotions of a case where there's a death, or in this case, 3. And you have to be aware and sensitive to how you present to someone who's thinking that.